The galactic station Helios Nine floated quietly in orbit around a golden star. From far away it looked peaceful, a ring of silver shining above a world of clouds. Inside the station, however, peace was not always easy to keep. Hundreds of alien species met here every year for the Great Council, a meeting meant to prevent another galaxy-wide conflict. Delegates from every known civilization filled the wide circular hall. There were tall creatures covered in scales, small ones with bright feathers, and beings that shimmered like water. Each race had come to speak about trade, defense, and alliances. Yet behind all those topics hid one truth. Everyone feared the same thing. Everyone feared the humans. Humans had joined the Galactic Union only 50 years ago. In those years, they had become both respected and feared. They were friendly, skilled, and polite, but every other race knew one thing. Humans were born from a world that had seen endless wars. Earth had been called a death world, a place where even the plants could kill. The stories of human wars were legend. Every alien historian knew of them, though none dared to speak of them aloud. That morning, the council was about to start when the young scholar Rith entered the chamber. He was from the Letheri, a race known for curiosity and courage. Rith had spent years studying humans. He admired them, but could never understand their history. To him, they were strange. They built peace treaties faster than any other species, yet they had once destroyed entire armies in days. Rith's scales shimmered blue as he walked to his seat, holding a data tablet filled with notes. His question burned in his mind. He had promised himself not to ask it, but he knew he could not leave this meeting without the answer. At the center of the chamber stood Captain Mira, the human representative. She was not dressed in armor or medals. She wore a simple dark suit with a single badge on her chest. Her calm eyes watched the hall as silence fell around her. Her presence alone drew attention. Even the loudest species lowered their voices when she spoke. Mira was once a soldier, now a diplomat. She carried herself with quiet strength, like someone who had seen more than most could imagine. The council began with routine talks. Trade agreements, border patrols, mining rights. Nothing unusual, but Rith could not focus. His question pressed against his tongue. His mentor had warned him not to ask it, saying humans do not like to speak of war. They have buried it for a reason. Still, Rith wanted to know the truth. If the galaxy feared humans, then understanding them was the only way to bring peace. Finally, when the discussions paused, Rith raised his hand. The hall grew silent. Dozens of alien eyes turned toward him. He could feel his pulse in his chest, but he spoke clearly. "Captain Myra," he said, "forgive my curiosity, but there is something the galaxy has always wondered. Why do humans avoid war? You have the strength to lead the stars, yet you hold back?" Why, the hall froze. Even the air felt heavy. A few delegates exchanged nervous glances. The question was bold. No one had ever asked it in public. For a moment, Mira said nothing. She looked at Rith, then at the crowd around her. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm and steady. "We avoid war," she said, "because we remember what happens when we do not." Her words hung in the air. The delegates waited for more, but she stayed silent. Rith frowned. "Every species fights," he said carefully. "Conflict is part of nature. What makes your people different?" Myra walked slowly to the center of the hall. She pressed a small button on her wrist console. The lights dimmed. A large hologram appeared in the air above the table. It showed a planet blue and green, Earth. Then the image changed. Cities burned, skies filled with smoke. Oceans turned red from fire. Soldiers marched through ruins. The room filled with the sound of thunder and screaming engines. Many aliens gasped. Some turned away. "This," said Mira, "is our history. For thousands of years, humans fought each other. We fought for land, for power, for pride. We built weapons to protect ourselves, then used them to destroy. Every time we thought we had learned, we found a new way to kill. We reached the edge of extinction not once, but many times." Rith watched in silence. His blue scales turned pale. He had read about human wars, but seeing them was different. The brutality was not like anything his kind had ever known. His people had fought small conflicts, but never destruction like this, Mira continued. We built nations, then broke them. We made peace, then forgot it. We learned to split the atom, and we used it to make light. Then we used it to burn cities. We thought we were gods, but we were only children playing with fire. She paused and looked at the crowd. That is why we avoid war, because we remember the cost. The hologram changed again. Now, it showed human hands building homes, planting trees, and healing the wounded. Children smiled under blue skies. Soldiers helped rebuild the places they had once destroyed. We are not peaceful by nature, Mira said softly. We are peaceful by choice. We learned that strength without mercy is emptiness. We learned that victory without compassion is nothing. An older alien stood. He was from the Krovan race, known for their warrior clans. His voice rumbled deep. But if you have such strength, why not use it to protect the weak? The galaxy could use your leadership. Amira looked at him, then shook her head. Protection is not the same as control. Every empire begins with good intentions. Every war begins with the belief that one side knows better. We learned that lesson the hard way. The moment we fight for others, we risk becoming the thing we hate most. A murmur spread across the hall. Some nodded, others looked uncertain. Rith felt both awe and fear. He realized that the calmness in Mira's voice came from experience, not pride. These were not the words of someone who feared war, but of someone who had survived it. After the meeting ended, Rith found Mira in the station's observation deck. The stars shone across the black sky. He stood beside her quietly before speaking. I hope I did not offend you, he said. I only wanted to understand. You did not offend me, she replied. Curiosity is not a crime. You asked what many think but never say, hesitated. Your people must carry heavy memories, she nodded. We do. Every generation carries them. That is why we work so hard to keep peace. We are not angels. We are survivors. Rith looked out at the stars. Do you think humans will ever fight again? Mira's gaze stayed fixed on the distant planets. If we are forced to defend the innocent, yes. But if we can stop a war before it begins, that is our victory. You see, Rith, humans are not afraid of fighting. We are afraid of forgetting what happens when we do. Her words sank into his mind like stone. He finally understood that peace for humans was not a weakness. It was strength shaped by pain. Every treaty, every handshake, every effort to build trust was their way of fighting another kind of war, a war against their own past. A soft alarm echoed through the deck. Signaling the next session of the council, Mira turned to leave, but before she did, she said something that Rith would remember for the rest of his life. Tell your people this, she said. Humans avoid war not because we cannot fight, but because when we do not stop until it is over. Then she walked away, leaving Rith alone under the glow of the stars. He stood there for a long time, watching the endless dark beyond the glass. For the first time, he felt a quiet respect mixed with fear. He understood why no alien dared to provoke humanity. It was not because of their weapons or ships. It was because of their will. Later that night, Rith wrote a report for the Lethari Council. He began with one line. Humans do not avoid war out of weakness. They avoid it because they remember what it makes them become. He attached the hollows of Earth's history and ended his message with a single reflection. If peace is strength, then humanity is the strongest species of all. Far away on Earth, Captain Mira stood in her quarters, looking at an old photograph. It showed her standing with her unit long ago, before she became a diplomat. She smiled faintly. The photo reminded her of friends lost and lessons learned. She placed it back on the shelf and turned off the light. Outside, the stars burned silently. Somewhere in the galaxy, wars still raged. But for now, the humans slept. Not because they were tired, but because they had chosen rest over ruin. The galaxy believed they were peaceful. The truth was deeper. Humanity was resting, waiting, remembering. And that memory was what kept the stars safe. Days passed after the Great Council on Helios 9. The discussions continued. And every species tried to move on to other matters, but the air had changed. The words of Captain Myra still echoed in the minds of the delegates. Many had come to the station thinking of humans as peaceful diplomats. Now, they saw them as something far more complex. Across the station, whispers spread. Some called the humans wise. Others called them dangerous. Yet everyone agreed on one thing. No one wanted to test them. Captain Myra spent her days in meetings, writing reports, and sending messages back to Earth. She kept her tone calm, her face gentle. But inside she felt the old weight of memory pressing against her. She had spoken the truth, but the truth always brought questions. One morning, Rith visited her again. The young Lethari carried a small crystal tablet filled with notes. His scales glowed faint blue in the soft light of the observation deck. Captain Myra said politely, "I have studied the human wars of the past. I think I understand why your people avoid them now, but there is something I still cannot explain." Myra turned to him with a faint smile. "Ask Rith. You are not afraid of questions." Rith hesitated, then said, "Every species fears something. The Crovens fear dishonor. The Vals fear famine. My people fear silence. But what do humans fear?" Myra looked out at the stars before answering. "We fear ourselves," Rith frowned. "You mean your own kind?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. We fear what we can become when we stop caring. We fear the moment when we start to think that others are not worth saving. That is when war returns. We learned that long ago." Before Rith could reply, a soft alarm sounded through the deck. Myra tapped her wrist console and read the message. Her calm expression changed. "What happened?" asked Rith. "There was an attack on the outer colony of Novalis," she said quietly. "Pirates raided a cargo station. Several ships were taken. Do you think it is serious?" Myra closed the console. "Every act of violence is serious. But this one will not go unanswered." Later that day, the council gathered again. The ambassador from the attacked world, a tall gray being from the Mevran race, stood in the center of the hall. His voice shook with anger. "We demand justice. These pirates must be punished. The humans have the fleet. Let them strike." Many delegates murmured in agreement. The human fleet was the strongest in the Union. Their ships were fast, their technology advanced, and their soldiers unmatched in discipline. Everyone knew that if the humans took action, the pirates would vanish in days. But Myra stood calmly, her hands folded behind her back. "Revenge will not bring peace," she said. "We will help, but we will not start another war over criminals." The Mevran ambassador glared. "You speak of peace, human, but peace without punishment is weakness." Myra's eyes were steady. "Peace without wisdom is also weakness. We will help you track the pirates, but we will not turn the stars into fire again." The hall fell silent. The Mevran ambassador said nothing more, but his anger was clear. Rith watched from his seat, amazed by Myra's control. She did not raise her voice, yet everyone listened. Her calmness was stronger than any threat. After the meeting, Myra went to the command deck where the human officers worked. Screens showed maps of nearby sectors. The human fleet was already preparing ships to patrol the routes near Novalis. Myra stood beside her second-in-command, Commander Ray. Ray was younger, but sharp and loyal. "We have 3 destroyers near the colony," she reported. "They can intercept the pirates in less than a day." "Do it," said Myra. "No open fire unless attacked first. Bring them in alive if possible." Ray nodded. "Understood." As the officers moved, Rith entered quietly. Myra allowed him to stay, curious about what he would see. He watched the humans work together with silent efficiency. No shouting, no panic, only coordination. Every order was clear, every movement precise. It fascinated him. He realized that these people who claimed to avoid war still carried its discipline inside them. Their peace was not softness. It was order held tightly under control. Hours later, the human ships reached the outer sector. They found the pirate vessels near an asteroid belt. The pirates fired first, but the humans did not return fire immediately. They used drones to disable engines, then boarded the ships using stun fields. Within minutes, the pirates surrendered. No one was killed. When the message reached the council, many were shocked. The pirates were captured without bloodshed. The Meveran ambassador could not argue. The humans had brought justice without starting another conflict. Rith approached Mira after the report. "You won again, Captain?" Mira smiled faintly. "This is not a game, Rith. Peace is not a victory. It is work. But you did not use your weapons. You could have destroyed them easily," she nodded. "We could have, but we did not. Every time we choose not to destroy, we win a small war inside ourselves." Rith thought deeply about that. For his people, victory meant dominance. For humans, victory meant restraint. It was a strange but powerful idea. That night, Mira walked through the silent corridors of the station. She passed windows showing the endless stars, each one a reminder of how small they all were. She remembered her time as a soldier. She remembered battles fought long ago on worlds that now lay silent. She remembered the cost of every victory. Her wrist console buzzed again. This time it was a message from Earth. It came from the United Human Council. The words were short. "Maintain peace, but be ready." Mira understood. The humans still trusted peace, but they never forgot preparation. They had learned that peace must be guarded, not assumed. Meanwhile, Rith returned to his quarters and opened his notes. He wrote down everything he had seen that day. His new entry read, "Humans do not avoid war because they are afraid to fight. They avoid it because they are better at fighting than anyone else. They know that if they begin, they will not stop until everything ends. That is why they wait. That is why they restrain themselves. It is not mercy. It is memory." He stopped writing and looked at the stars beyond his window. He wondered how many of them would still be shining if humanity ever unleashed its full power again. He hoped the answer would never be known. 2 weeks later, pirate leaders were brought to trial on Helios-Anine. They stood before the council, afraid and silent. The evidence was clear. They had attacked for greed, not survival. The council ruled to exile them to an uninhabited moon. Myra stood behind the decision, though she remained quiet. Some delegates called it mercy. Others called it weakness. But Rith saw the truth. He saw that the humans had given the pirates something rarer than punishment. They had given them a chance to remember. After the trial, Mira and Rith walked together through the docking bay. Workers repaired ships and loaded supplies. The smell of fuel filled the air. "Your people believe in giving second chances," said Rith. Mira nodded. "Because we needed second chances too. Long ago, after our last great war, we promised never to let hate guide us again. We failed many times, but we kept trying. That is what makes us human." Rith smiled slightly. "Perhaps that is what makes you different from the rest of us." As they reached the airlock, a sudden alert rang through the bay. Lights flashed red. Officers hurried to their stations. Mira touched her wrist console. "Report," a voice came through the speaker. "Unidentified ships approaching from the dark zone. No signal, no code." Mira's eyes narrowed. "How many?" "5. Possibly more behind them." Rith looked alarmed. "Could it be more pirates?" "Maybe," Mira said, "or something worse. Stay behind me." The view screens came alive, showing shapes moving through the dark space beyond the station. The ships were large, black, and without any known insignia. They moved slowly, but with purpose. Mira activated the defense grid, but did not give the order to fire. She stood watching, her face calm yet focused. "Open a channel," she said. "Let us see who they are." No reply came. The ships kept advancing. The hall filled with tension. The human officers waited for the command, but Mira raised a hand. Not yet. The ships stopped a few thousand kilometers from the station. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, one of them sent a short transmission. The message was only one sentence, spoken in an unfamiliar voice. "We have come to test your peace." The signal ended. Rith's heart raced. He looked at Mira. "What do they mean?" Mira's voice was quiet but steady. "They want to see how far we will go before we break." The officers looked at her, waiting for orders. Mira took a breath and said, "Prepare for defense, but do not fire unless they attack first. The galaxy watches us now." As the ships drifted closer, the stars seemed to fade behind them. The piece of Helios Nin trembled on the edge of something vast and uncertain. Rith could feel the weight of it in his chest. He understood that this was not just another threat. This was a test of everything the humans had claimed to believe, and for the first time, wondered what would happen if someone truly forced humanity to remember what it had once been. The dark ships hung outside Helios Nin like shadows against the stars. They made no movement, no sound, and no clear signal. Every species on the station watched them through screens. Wondering what would happen next, inside the command deck? Captain Myra stood in front of the large display, her hands behind her back. Her calm eyes studied the formation of the unknown fleet. Commander Ray stood beside her, waiting for orders. The air in the room was tense, yet no one spoke louder than a whisper. "Any identification?" Mira asked. Ray shook her head. "None. Their signal is scrambled. The ships are large, about the size of destroyers, but their design does not match any known species. They are not pirates. They are organized. Have they attacked? Not yet. They are holding position." Mira looked thoughtful. "Then we hold ours." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone on the deck could feel the tension rising. The unknown fleet had sent one message only. "We have come to test your peace." Those words had spread across the station like fire. Every race on Helios 9 had a different theory. Some said it was a new faction trying to challenge the Galactic Union. Others believed it was a group of mercenaries testing the humans. Rith, the young Lethari scholar, stood near the edge of the room, observing everything. His heart pounded with both fear and curiosity. He had studied human history for years, and now he was about to see how much of that history still lived inside them. The silence stretched for hours. The dark ships stayed motionless, like predators waiting in the dark. Myra refused to act first. She ordered the defense systems to stay online but not to fire. She spoke only when needed, her voice calm and precise. At last, a new signal came. It was short and sharp. The strange ships began to move again. 5 of them advanced slowly toward the station. Ray looked at the radar. "They are closing distance. They will reach the defense perimeter in 5 minutes. Hold position," Mira said. RITH could not stay quiet. "Captain, they are testing you. If you do not respond, they will think you are weak." Mira glanced at him with steady eyes. "Let them think. Peace is not weakness. It is control. They want a reaction. They will not get one." The ships kept moving closer. The station alarms turned yellow, signaling potential danger. The other alien delegates began to panic. Messages poured into the command deck from ambassadors demanding action. The Mevran envoy shouted over the com, "If you do not stop them, we will fire ourselves." "Stand down," Mira said through the channel. "No one fires unless I give the order. This is human command authority." Rith was amazed by her composure. He realized that peace for humans was not calm born of safety. It was calm born of choice. The dark ship stopped just short of the defense line. Then one of them fired a small projectile. It hit the station's outer shield with a flash of light. The shield held strong, no damage done. Commander Ray looked at Myra. "That was a warning shot." Myra's voice was still calm. "I know." Ray hesitated. "Do we return fire?" "No, not yet." The ships fired again, this time hitting one of the defense drones orbiting near the station. The drone exploded silently in space. Gasps filled the command room. The aliens watching through the live feed shouted in confusion. Rith's voice trembled. "Captain, this is not a test anymore. They are provoking you." Mira's tone turned cold. "They are still within their line. One more strike, and it becomes war. Until then, they are only testing patience." For the next few minutes, the ships stayed quiet. Then, the largest one moved forward and sent another message. The words appeared on the main screen. If you will not defend yourselves, you do not deserve the stars. Ray clenched her fists. That is enough. Let me take the fleet out there. We can end this in 10 minutes. Mira turned to her and said firmly, and start what will never end. No, not yet. Her restraint confused even her own officers, but none dared to argue further. Suddenly, one of the unknown ships launched a new projectile. This time, it was aimed directly at the station. The impact shook the hull. Alarms flashed red. Systems flickered for a moment. Ray shouted, shields down by 10%. Outer panels damaged? Mira took a deep breath. Her eyes hardened. Activate defensive measures. Deploy fleet units, but do not engage until my order. Within minutes, the human fleet station nearby moved into formation. 10 sleek ships glided between Helios 9 and the attackers. Their hulls gleamed silver under the starlight. Each one bore the flag of Earth, a small blue circle with white lines around it. The sight of the human fleet filled every viewer on the station with both relief and fear. The humans had not fired yet, but everyone knew what those ships could do. The mysterious fleet stopped advancing. For the first time, a voice spoke through the channel. It was deep and distorted. You talk of peace? Humans. Show us if it can survive pain. Then the attackers opened fire. Red streaks of energy cut through space. The first volley hit the human shields. The ships shook, but their formation did not break. Mira watched the display. Her face was calm, but her heart was steady with old memories. She knew what war looked like. She had seen it before. Commander Ray, she said quietly. Hold line. No return fire until I say. Ray nodded but looked uncertain. The human fleet held steady under the second wave of attacks. The shields glowed bright blue, but did not fall. The enemy's fire was heavy but undisciplined. They were trying to make the humans strike first. Finally, after several long minutes, the enemy ships paused. The voice came again. Is this your peace, Captain? Hiding behind shields? Where is your power? Myra's tone was firm. Our power is in restraint. You have made your point. Leave now. The attackers did not leave. They fired again, this time targeting the station's communication array. Sparks burst from the control panels. The connection with several outposts broke. Myra's patience ended. Her voice turned sharp. Commander Ray, fire to disable. Target engines only. The command deck came alive. The human fleet moved with precision. In seconds, coordinated bursts of blue light struck the enemy ships. Their engines flared and shut down. One by one, the attackers went dark. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun. The enemy ships drifted powerless through space. No one on the human side had died. No station damaged beyond repair. The aliens watching from the council hall were silent. When the enemy ships were disabled, Mira gave the next order. Send boarding teams. Rescue any survivors? Treat their wounds. We will question them later. Even after victory, she did not celebrate. Her focus remained on preventing further loss. An hour later, the boarding teams returned. The captured crew were not from any known race. Their bodies were covered with metal plates, and their eyes glowed faint orange. Their leader was half machine, half organic, a creation from the outer systems known as the Sarin Combine. They were an ancient group of artificial beings who believed only strength could rule the stars. They had attacked not for resources, but for ideology. They believed that peace was weakness. They wanted to prove that the humans' promise of peace was a lie. When Mira entered the holding chamber, the Sarin leader raised its head. You speak of peace, human, but when tested, you fought. Mira stood tall. We fought to protect, not to conquer. The Sarin's mechanical eyes flickered. Protection is still violence. You cannot escape your nature. Mira answered firmly. Maybe not. But we can choose what to do with it. You came to test peace. You found it stronger than your weapons. The machine gave no reply. Mira turned and left the chamber. She knew the war was not over. The Combine would return, and next time they might not stop at a test. Later, As the station repaired its systems, the council gathered once again. The delegates were restless. Some praised the humans for saving the station. Others feared what their power could mean. Mira stood in the center of the room, facing them all. "You have seen what happens when peace is tested," she said. "You saw that restraint is not weakness. You saw that patience is not fear. We held until there was no other choice. That is the human way." The Mevran ambassador spoke, his tone softer this time. "And if the Combine returns?" Mira looked around the hall. "Then we will stand again. But remember this. If humanity ever goes to war, we do not fight to rule. We fight to stop the fire from spreading. And we do not stop until it is done." The room fell silent. Even those who doubted humans felt the weight of her words. When the meeting ended, Rith approached her quietly. "Captain, I think I finally understand what you meant when you said peace is work." Mira smiled faintly. "Work and will. That is what keeps us human," he nodded. "And what if the galaxy keeps testing you?" Mira looked toward the stars. "Then the galaxy will keep learning why humans avoid war." Outside the window, the wrecks of the Saren ships drifted slowly through space, glowing faintly in the starlight. The humans had won, but without arrogance. They had fought only because they had no other choice. Rith watched the quiet stars and thought of the words he would write next. The humans passed the test of peace. Their calm is not emptiness. It is the deep silence before a storm that they never wished to release. And so, across the galaxy, the story spread once more. The humans had faced the test and remained true to their promise. They avoided war not because they feared it, but because they respected it too much to use it lightly. The Saren Combine's captured ships floated silently in the outer docking bays of Helios 9. Their engines were offline. Their weapons disabled, but their presence still cast a shadow across the station. Every alien delegate on Helios 9 could feel the tension in the air. The humans had acted decisively to protect the station. Yet the galaxy was learning a new lesson about the strength hidden behind restraint, Captain. Mira walked through the docking bays with Commander Ray and Rith, following quietly behind. The human boarding teams had returned with detailed reports. The Soren Combine were not just mercenaries. They were a highly organized group, ancient in design, who had once ruled parts of the outer galaxy. Their goal had never been resources. They believed that only those who wielded power without hesitation could lead the stars. Ray glanced at Mira. "Captain, they are dangerous. Their technology is advanced and unpredictable. If they regroup, we could be facing more than just another test." Mira's expression was calm. "We have faced dangerous enemies before. The difference is that this time we fight not to destroy, but to protect. That is the lesson of humanity." Rith could not hide his curiosity. "Captain, why do they care if humans fight or not? Why challenge you?" Mira looked out at the stars beyond the docking bay. "Because they do not understand restraint. They have never had to stop themselves." The young Lethari scholar nodded slowly. He began to understand the depth of the human way. It was not just discipline. It was memory, experience, and will combined into a force that was quiet but unstoppable. Later, the council chamber, the Saren Combine leader was brought forward for questioning. The creature was half machine, half organic, its mechanical parts glinting under the chamber lights. Its eyes glowed faint orange, and every movement was precise, controlled, and deliberate. "You claim to avoid war," it said in a distorted voice, "yet you fought to stop us. Why?" Myra stepped forward. Her voice was calm and clear. "We do not fight for conquest. We fight to protect those who cannot defend themselves and to prevent chaos from spreading." The Saren leader's eyes flickered. "Protection is still violence. Restraint is only delay. One day humans will be forced to choose, and when that moment comes, you will either break or destroy." Mira looked directly at the machine. "Then we will remember. We will choose wisely, and we will not break. That is what makes humans different." The Saren leader tilted its head, analyzing her words. Then it was silent. Its officers in the chamber murmured among themselves. Even they had not expected such confidence. After the questioning, the Soren Combine were held under strict surveillance. Every movement, every communication, and every attempt at repair was monitored by human teams. The aliens on the station watched in awe and unease. The humans were powerful, yet they showed no arrogance. They acted with precision, patience, and control. Meanwhile, Mira convened a private meeting with her senior officers. Maps and data projections filled the display screens. "We need to understand the Combine's plan," Mira said. "This was not a random attack. They will return, stronger and more prepared. They want to test the limits of our restraint." Ray nodded. "We can strengthen the station's defenses, increase patrols, and deploy drones. But they have advanced technology. They could bypass most systems." Mira's voice was firm. "Then we prepare differently. We cannot rely only on weapons. We must rely on strategy, on understanding, and on every lesson we learned from our past." Rith, observing quietly, asked, "Captain, how do humans prepare for something like this without giving in to fear?" Mira smiled faintly. "We prepare with knowledge. We prepare with caution. And we remember. Every time we face danger, we recall the cost of war, the cost of failure, and the cost of losing ourselves. That memory guides every action we take." The days that followed were tense. Patrols moved through the outer sectors. Human engineers repaired and upgraded systems, and intelligence teams studied the Soren Combine's captured vessels. Every night, Mira walked through the observation deck, watching the stars. Thinking of Earth's long history of wars, victories, and lessons, Rith often accompanied her. "Do humans ever forget?" he asked one evening. Mira shook her head. "Never completely. Forgetting is dangerous. Forgetting allows history to repeat itself. That is why we remember, and why we prepare, but why we avoid starting wars unnecessarily." 1 week later, an alert flashed on the station's main screen. A fleet was detected approaching from the dark zone beyond Heliosnine. At first, it looked like the previous group, but this time there were more ships, larger and faster. The sensors detected new weapon signatures that were unfamiliar to anyone. The council chamber was called immediately. Every delegate hurried to the hall, anxious. Mira entered last, her expression calm but resolute. She addressed the assembly. "This is not a test. The Soren Combine has returned with full strength. They seek to challenge our promise of peace and to see if humanity will break. We must act with wisdom, not emotion." The ambassadors murmured nervously. Many species suggested preemptive strikes, but Myra silenced them with a raised hand. "We will not attack first. We will prepare, we will defend, and we will ensure no unnecessary lives are lost. That is our way. That is the human way." Outside the station, the new Soren fleet moved closer. Their movements were coordinated, precise, and intimidating. The human fleet responded, forming a protective shield around Helios 9. Ships glided smoothly. Weapons ready, but none fired. The Soren sent a transmission. "Your peace is an illusion. We will force you to fight. Show us if you are worthy of survival." Mira did not reply. She studied the fleet's formation and patterns, looking for weaknesses and opportunities. Her calmness inspired confidence in her officers. Every move was calculated, every decision based on strategy and knowledge. Rith watched in awe. "Captain, if they attack first, will you fight?" "Yes," Mira said quietly, "but only to protect. Our goal is to survive, not to conquer. That is the difference."
Hours
passed. The Soren fleet continued to test the humans, firing warning shots and probing defenses. The humans responded with precise maneuvers, intercepting attacks without casualties. Every strike was countered without retaliation. Every threat was neutralized without aggression. The alien delegates could not believe what they were witnessing. They had expected humans to either flee or retaliate. Instead, they saw restraint and intelligence. Courage and strategy combined in a way no other species had ever achieved. Finally, the Soren fleet paused. The leader transmitted again. You have shown skill and control. But can you maintain it under pressure? Can you withstand fear and pain without breaking? Mira's voice was calm, clear, and firm. Yes, that is what humans do. We face danger, we face fear, and we face pain, but we do not break. We learn, we remember, and we act with wisdom. That is why we avoid war, and that is why we endure. The Sauron fleet retreated slightly, not fully, but enough to show hesitation. Their challenge was ongoing, but for the first time, the humans had shown that they could withstand the test. Rith turned to Mira. They will return stronger, won't they? Mira nodded. Yes, and we will be ready. Every attack teaches us more about their plans. Every threat strengthens our strategy. That is the power of restraint. As the stars glowed outside the observation deck, Mira reflected on the humans' history. Earth had been destroyed and rebuilt countless times, but every time, humans had learned. They had survived. They had remembered. That memory was their greatest weapon, stronger than any fleet, sharper than any blade, and more enduring than any shield. Rith understood now. Humans avoided war not because they were weak or fearful, but because they were wise. They knew the cost, they remembered the past, and they used that knowledge to survive and protect. The Saren Combine had come to test them. And humans had responded in a way no other species could. They had defended without aggression, acted without hatred, and shown strength without domination. That was the true measure of power. Myra stood quietly, watching the dark ships linger at the edge of the sector. She knew the Combine's test was far from over, but humanity had passed this stage. They had shown that peace was not weakness, and that restraint could be stronger than the most advanced weapons. The galaxy had begun to understand the truth about humans. They avoided war not because they could not fight, but because they knew what fighting truly cost. They remembered the flames of their past, and that memory guided every choice, every action, and every decision. And in the silence of space, the stars bore witness to a species that had learned the hardest lesson of all, that the strongest warriors are those who can control themselves. The Zyran ship hovered silently above Earth. Kilo and Nira watched the planet with a mix of fascination and confusion. They had traveled across hundreds of star systems, studying civilizations that fell to war, greed, or fear. But Earth was different. Even after centuries of conflicts, humans had survived, grown stronger, and learned lessons that no other species seemed to grasp. Their mission had begun with curiosity, then suspicion. The Zyran had expected humans to be aggressive, reckless, and driven by conflict. Instead, they saw societies built on communication, compromise, and careful planning. Humans did fight when necessary, but they always tried to avoid it. And now, Kilo and Nira were about to learn why. The aliens had been granted permission to meet a human ambassador, a tall woman named Mara, known for her role in interstellar diplomacy. She was calm, confident, and observant. She welcomed the Zyran without fear, despite knowing their species had far greater technological power. Why do humans avoid war? Kilo asked immediately. His voice carried curiosity and the faint echo of disbelief. We have watched your planet for centuries. You have weapons. You have fought wars. Yet you do not seem to seek conquest. You do not dominate others even when you can. Mara smiled gently. We have learned that war destroys more than it creates, she said. Yes, humans have fought wars. Yes, some conflicts were brutal. But every time we faced war, we learned a lesson. Strength alone does not guarantee survival. Cooperation, understanding, and patience do. That is why we avoid war whenever we can. Nira tilted her head. You speak like your species has wisdom beyond instinct. How do you survive threats from others who do not share your restraint? Mara led them to a viewing room. Through a vast window, the Zyran could see Earth's landscapes, mountains, forests, rivers, and cities bustling with life. Human activity was varied. Some were building new structures, others were studying stars, and many were helping each other in daily life. Humans survive because we plan, Mara explained. We do not rely on brute strength alone. We use strategy, science, and foresight. We train to protect, not to destroy. And most importantly, we value life. Not just human life, but all life around us. That gives us purpose beyond fighting. It gives us reasons to avoid unnecessary conflict. Kilo and Nira listened in silence. In all their travels, no species had spoken like this. Most believed survival required dominance and immediate aggression. The humans were different. Their strength was not just in weapons or technology. Their strength was in their mind, their empathy, and their ability to unite against a common threat without losing themselves to hatred. But what if another species attacks you? Kilo asked. What if someone decides to destroy your planet? Mara's eyes hardened, but her voice remained steady. Then we fight. We fight to protect, not to conquer. And when we fight, we do it with precision and intelligence. Humans are not mindless killers. We do not destroy without reason. But if someone threatens our home, our people, or our principles, we will act. And we will act with a level of determination that most species cannot comprehend. That is why some civilizations fear humans not because we start wars, but because we do not fear them when we defend ourselves. Nira frowned. So your avoidance of war is not weakness. It is choice. Exactly, Mara said. Avoiding war requires strength. It requires understanding consequences, predicting reactions, and staying calm even when others want chaos. It is not easy, but it is more effective than endless fighting. That is the true power of humanity. Zyron took this in. They had witnessed human ingenuity in cities, research stations, and space exploration. They had seen how humans solved problems, helped strangers, and rebuilt after disasters. But hearing it explained gave it meaning. Humans did not avoid war out of fear. They avoided it out of intelligence and respect for life. Kilo asked another question. And what if humans fail? What if another civilization forces war upon you? Mara's expression became serious. We will never truly fail. Humans have survived catastrophes that would have destroyed other species. We have adapted to plagues, natural disasters, and internal conflicts. Our survival is built on learning, resilience, and cooperation. Even if war comes, we will face it strategically. And we will remember every lesson so that future generations avoid the same mistakes. That is how we grow stronger. Nira was quiet. She glanced at Kilo. Both of them realized that humans were more dangerous than they had assumed. Not because they were aggressive, but because their minds were sharp and their hearts were committed. Mara continued. Avoiding war is our choice. But if war finds us, we do not shrink from it. That is why humans are both feared and respected across the galaxy. We do not provoke, yet we endure. We do not conquer for greed, yet we protect fiercely. That balance is rare. That is why humans survive when others fall. The Zyron left Mara with more questions than answers. But one truth had become clear. Humans were not weak. They were not reckless. They were survivors by design, learners by nature, and warriors only when necessary. Their avoidance of war was not a lack of power, but a demonstration of ultimate control. As Kilo and Nira returned to their ship, they observed Earth once more. They noticed children playing in parks, scientists testing experiments in labs, and communities rebuilding after storms. Every human action, big or small, carried a lesson in cooperation and foresight. Kilo spoke softly. They are different. We cannot predict them like other species. They choose their battles wisely. Nira nodded. And in that choice lies their strength. They do not rush into destruction. They plan. They adapt. They survive. For the first time, the Zyron explorers understood why humans avoided war. It was not fear, not weakness, not indecision. It was wisdom, patience, and respect for life. And that wisdom had allowed humans to endure where other species had fallen. Mara's final words echoed in their minds as they prepared to leave orbit. War is never the first answer. It is the last. Humans avoid it because we value what comes after survival growth, learning, and life itself. That is why our planet thrives. That is why our species endures. And that is why any civilization that underestimates us will soon understand that we are more capable than they ever imagined.
Oh.
The Zyran departed with a new respect. They carried data, images, and recordings, but the most important lesson could not be captured in any device. The lesson was in human nature, in choice, the careful balance between strength and restraint. As Earth rotated beneath them, Kilo realized that humanity's greatest power was invisible to the naked eye. It was the strength of mind, the courage to act wisely, and the patience to avoid unnecessary conflict. And perhaps, just perhaps, that made humans one of the most remarkable species in the galaxy. For the Zyran, the encounter was more than research. It was a revelation. They had traveled the stars seeking strength in weapons, speed, and dominance. They found it in human Zen, the quiet, deliberate decisions that avoided war, yet prepared them for anything. And so, the Zyran recorded their final message. Humans avoid war not because they are weak, but because they are strong enough to choose it. And that is why they survive when others fall. The human planets shone in the distance, peaceful yet ready. And in that balance, in that choice, lay the answer to a question that had puzzled countless civilizations: why humans avoid war, and why they endure against all odds.